Hey, I'm Steve.
Hey.
And I'm Marshall. We're here to talk to you about the issue of ELL students dealing with special needs.
But what's ELL, you ask?
ELL is the new way of saying ESL, which was English as a second language.
But then there's also so many other terms like the EAL, English as additional language.
And there's the new term ELL, which is English language learner. Nonetheless, they're all the same.
Exactly. So can you imagine how hard it is for a special needs student to come to Canada without knowing a word of English?
I had a boy a few years ago from Iran. He did attend school, so you would think he came with sufficient reading skills to just transfer the language slowly over. But I realized as we worked on, he wasn't progressing. The other kids in the class were progressing, but he wasn't. He was needing a full-time tutor with me as well as a full-time tutor constantly, and still no progress was being made. Then it's hard to get them into other classes. He would just not have enough English, and he would never reach the point where you could feel comfortable to put him into a science class or a social studies class, and he would stay longer and longer in just the beginner class. And after a semester of intense help every day for 75 minutes, you realize that there's still no progress. You know there's something else that needs to be done, and then you have to start the paperwork towards getting some other specialists into them.
The age-old dilemma. What do we do with these students? Do we keep them segregated from the normal class? Or do we include them into our normal class?
So every year these public schools get a new crop of students, with a few of them having the special case of being ELL and having a special need. So from the interviews we've gotten, we've found out that this process of identifying these students could take anywhere from a semester to a year to 2 years. It's inconsistent. So what should we do with these students? I believe that there should be a healthy balance between having them segregated in a classroom with a one-on-one setting with a TA where they can develop the fundamental skills they need to help develop in their learning disability. But at the same time, I think it's very vital that they have an hour, maybe 2 hours a day, that they can be in a regular classroom setting where they can interact with other students, maybe be in a group project, and gain those social skills that they will need once they graduate high school. I think that they won't have the same support system once they graduate high school, so they need to gain these social skills so they can get a job in the future. So Vina, what's the process in diagnosing these students with a learning disability? How does it work? What's the time frame?
When they first come, you work with them. Once you start getting that feeling that you think there's something off, I would be looking at them more closely, monitoring their work, talking to other teachers how they're doing in the other classes. You wouldn't act on it at all for the first semester, because they need the time to adjust properly to the new country, to the new school, to the new culture, to the kids, to the expectations at school. So you wouldn't do anything, and you just keep watching. I think after the first semester, I'd be getting more concerned. If the problem continues, then I would probably talk to the resource specialist in the school, your dad. Okay. And then we would contact somebody at the school board level, the district psychologist, and start working on the paperwork towards getting that filled out. It's a lengthy process, so it does take time, but that gives you more time to just keep watching and have more information to share with the district psychologist. And you fill in this checklist that she's provided. I've done that with a few students. And then eventually she will come in and she will do a series of tests that will take a few days.
Like Vina said, it can take up to 1 year for these special need EL students to finally get diagnosed. Or does it?
How long does that process usually take?
It's hard to say. It's different all the time. I couldn't give you an exact number. I wouldn't say it happens really quick, but we try to get it done as fast as we can.
Okay. It's very difficult to identify whether or not they are learning disabled. When they come here, they need to be in an environment for a year, possibly 2 years, and at that time, just through observation, we can determine if there is an issue. It may not be learning disability. It may be the shock of coming to a new country. Probably one of the worst things we can do is label an ELL student as being learning disabled or treat them as a learning disabled student, when there may be other reasons as to why they're not performing at the level that we feel they should be performing after a year or two. And generally we look at it, I think we probably look at 2 to 3 years before we start sitting down and making a decision as to what we're going to do to support this student. And at times when you misdiagnose a student and put them in a learning assistance class and treat them like they're learning disabled, that can do more harm than if you leave them alone for a while and allow them to continue and support them the best you can in a regular environment. So I'm very careful about treating an ELL student as being learning disabled after 2 years. I like to wait possibly 3 years. At that point, if we feel they're learning disabled, there's very few psychologists in the province that can actually diagnose them.
So every school deals with these situations differently. There's no one set time frame for these students to be diagnosed. It's so inconsistent. But it's also because of these various reasons. Language barriers.
So the teachers may not know if the student is struggling because of the fact that they don't understand the English properly, or is it because they have a learning disability? Financial.
Schools and districts simply just don't have the budget to hire district psychiatrists to come in and diagnose the students. And denial of the parents.
This is one of the bigger ones. Parents may have too much pride and not accept the information that is given to them by the teachers. They may just deny that their child has a learning disability or has special needs, and they will insist that their child is put in regular classrooms.
I mean, if that's the problem, why there's still so many overseas students coming into our Canadian high school?
To be quite frank, international students, international ELL students, it's a moneymaker for school districts. We charge them anywhere between $12,000 to $15,000, and a lot of districts are balancing their budgets by bringing in international students.
So this is our solution. We think that the BC Ministry of Education should provide a team of educators that include teachers, counselors, ELL teachers, speech therapists, and psychiatrists to all be a part of the assessment process.
Exactly. And we also recommend that student profile be created for further and effective assessment. Now, these collection of data should include data such as health, developmental history, family context, and migration.
So teachers should look back on the student's previous school history and see what's been successful and see what's been valued by the parent, so they can incorporate this into the new program for the student.
In addition, teachers should take time and explain the reason behind some of these educational practices to the parents. Other educational researchers in the area of involving parents of ELL disabled students in planning programming such as home visits, parents advisors, parents coordinators, exhibitions, and even offering ESL classes for the parents.